All right, guys, they are finally here. We finally have our hands on the new Ryzen 3000 processors. I got up at the crack of dawn to get my ass over to Micro Center and get my hands on the new Ryzen 9 3900X, that 12 core and 24 thread processor from AMD. I got to Micro Center and there was a line from the door wrapped around the building, and my Micro Center only had 10 copies of the new Ryzen 9 processor, and they were all claimed by the time I got there. So unfortunately, I was not able to get that like I promised you before, but I did end up picking the Ryzen 7 3700X up. And here is our new Ryzen processor. 8 cores and 16 threads. Has a 3.6 base clock and a boost clock of 4.4 gigahertz. During my testing, I had all cores at 4.2 gigahertz. And at $330, this 8-core processor does come with a nice RGB cooler, rounding out the great value that AMD has always offered. In this video, I'll be comparing the Ryzen 7 3700X to my old i7 8700K 6-core 12-thread processor. Now, unfortunately, in this video, I'll mostly be doing gaming benchmarks. I will be doing all my workflow benchmarks later on once I get my Ryzen 9 3900X, as I prepared my i7 8700K, which was on water with a 2080 Ti, for comparison to the Ryzen 9 3900X. All my workflow benchmarks will be coming in the future once I have the 3900X. So this 3700X comparison is going to be mostly gaming. I did test some Cinebench, both R15 and R20, and then I also tested some Firestrike as well as TimeSpy. I really hope that you guys find value in this video because it took me a long time to do. So the night before Ryzen even launched, I was up all night testing my 8700K, which I had overclocked to 5.1 gigahertz on water with a 2080 Ti. Once all my benchmarking was done, I tore apart my computer, drained the loop, and went to Micro Center, got my processor, brought it home, and had nothing but issues since then. So my X470 Crosshair Hero 7 motherboard would not accept the new BIOS flashback from the USB stick. I ended up having to dig up a 2400G to put into the X470 motherboard just to get to the BIOS splash screen. Then it would let me do a USB flashback. That took several hours because I kept having to reformat the USB stick. Other issues that I had with this BIOS, the mouse wouldn't work inside the BIOS, which was weird. And then also ASUS's version of XMP, the DOCP for AMD, if I tried to boot up with that, the computer just would not boot, giving me Q codes that were signifying that I was having memory issues. To fix that, I had to reseat all the memory and boot back up. And then finally, I had to disable DOCP and then manually overclock the RAM to the 3200 megahertz speed that I bought it at and adjust the timings to its out-of-the-box performance so I could match my Intel as best as possible. But with all those issues aside, I was able to finally get into Windows, update Windows to the 1903 update, and get all my Ryzen benchmarks done. Then I moved my i7 8700K to its own test bench on air this time. Now, because my 2080 Ti was on water, I was not able to use that for the testing in this video. So all of the benchmarks that I have done on both the i7 8700K as well as the Ryzen 7 3700X, they were done on the GTX 1070, which is the best graphics card I had on hand, other than my 2080 Ti, which I obviously could not use for this benchmark video right now. And with the i7 8700K test bench, I had to test that several times because I realized that I didn't have the Windows 1903 update on that test bench. So I ended up having to update Windows 10 to the 1903 update and retest all the games, which ended up being fruitless because all of the results were the same. And I just want to let you guys know that I am trying to be as thorough as possible and get you the most accurate results that I can. So we are going to go ahead and get into those benchmarks. As I said before, most of these benchmarks are going to be gaming benchmarks. I will be getting into most of my workflow production benchmarks in a later video once I get my full build in order. Now, to give you guys a little hint on how this Ryzen 7 performs with workflow production, I did test with the GTX 1070 on the Ryzen 7 3700X a 4K 60 render test in DaVinci Resolve, and it rendered the 50-second 4K video in 2 minutes and 47 seconds, where it took my overclocked i7-8700K with a 2080 Ti 3 minutes and 30 seconds. So that Ryzen 7 3700X with the higher core count at the 8 cores and 16 threads did outperform the i7 6-core processor in rendering times. I am very impressed overall right now with how this Ryzen processor holds up, and I'm really looking forward to when I get that Ryzen 9. I do have it on back order, so once the 3900X comes in, I'll be retesting everything and getting some new benchmarks out for you once I get my whole system set up for you. All right, so all that being said, let's go ahead and roll those benchmarks, and then I'll come back on top and tell you my thoughts on this processor. Alright guys, as you can see, the Ryzen processor performs very adequately in gaming, even paired with that kind of weak GTX 1070. I was pretty impressed with the performance, but as you also probably saw, Intel was on top still with gaming performance. As for value, the 8700K can be bought at a Micro Center for $300, which is $30 cheaper than the Ryzen 7. But if you take into account that the Ryzen 7 comes with a very nice stock cooler with RGB, and it does a pretty decent job in cooling the Ryzen 7, which is a 65 watt TDP processor, and the 8700K does not come with a cooler, the value oversets itself, and the 3700X is the better value, even for gaming as well as workflow. If you are looking for the best overall gaming performance, Intel is going to be your king for that. But if you're looking for more than gaming, if you want to start streaming, or if you want to do workflow, video editing, rendering, anything that takes multi-core and multi-threading, you're going to be wanting to go with Ryzen, as it is the best value, not only the best value, but also the best performance. Now, Steve from Hardware Unboxed, he did a video recently where he compared the Ryzen 5 1600 to the i7 7700K in 2019. Now, when it launched, the i7 7700K was the better performer in gaming compared to the Ryzen 5 1600, but now here in 2019, the Ryzen 5 1600 is now better than the 7700K in these modern day titles. So over time, that Intel i7 7700K lost a lot of its value, and Ryzen 5 1600 is still a very viable processor here today in 2019, and it's only $80 if you're near a Micro Center. So with that being noted, obviously we can't say right now, but if history repeats itself, these Ryzen processors could be the better performers in the future and will have better longevity. Now for this video, I did not do any overclock testing. I will be doing that later on in a future video once I get my processor on water, and we will get to see how this 3700X performs in overclocking. Not really expecting much. It looks like, according to a lot of the other reviewers, these Ryzen processors aren't great at overclocking, but I will see if I have any better luck than they do. See if I have won the silicon lottery with this 3700X, but I'm not holding out any hope. I should also notice is that my Asus board at auto settings was running at unsafe voltages, so I did have to manually lower the voltage down to 1.325, which according to Overclockers UK is the safest voltage for all Ryzen processors with the 7nm process. So all in all, what do I think about the new Ryzen 3000 processor? As of right now, I've only been able to test the 3700X. I would like to get my hands on a 3600, 3400G, and obviously I will be getting the 3900X here in the future, and I will be able to do some testing for you. But with Steve from Gamers Nexus and Steve from Hardware Unbox, both are reviewers that I respect and trust greatly. Both have said that 3600 is one of the greatest value processors out right now, and if you are looking for the best value, best budget processor right now, the 3600 for $200 is the way to go, and I will have to trust them and say that that is probably accurate, just as we've always said with the Ryzen 5 2600 and 1600. So if you're not going to be doing any multi-threaded workflow and you're just strictly looking for the best value gaming processor right now, the Ryzen 5 3600 is something that I will recommend despite having not tested that yet. The 3700X is still good value with the 8 cores and 16 threads. Be a great processor for someone that's trying to get into streaming, some gaming, and some light workflow production. And then if you are just someone that is just a FPS snob, then Intel is going to be the way to go. Alright guys, I think that's going to wrap up this video. I really hope that you found value in it, because as I said, it took me a lot of time to get all this testing to the most accurate that I could do for you. If you could give this video a like, I would really appreciate it. I really hope that I can be your go-to for future reviews when the next launch comes out, because I want to be as thorough and accurate as possible so you guys can make the best buying decision that you can. Make sure that you not only watch my review, but all other reviewers, and make sure that everything is within the 1% margin of error. Remember that I did test with the GTX 1070, where several reviewers are going to be testing with their best GPU, which most likely would be a 2080 Ti. But as I said, I will be retesting, and once I get my 2080 Ti back and ready to go on the new. Now, once I get the 2080 Ti back up and running with the new water block and my all-new water-cooled computer back up and running with the 2080 Ti, I will be redoing all the benchmarks, and I'll release that to you guys here in the future. And then I'll also have the 3900X also by that time too, and get those benchmarks out for you as well. I think that's going to be it for this video, guys. If you liked it, give it a like. If you want to see more from us, hit that subscribe button and the bell. If you didn't like this video, please let us know down in the comments what didn't you like about it so we can improve in the future. And we'll see you guys in the next video.